One of the biggest issues with Domination is a lack of maps, and today, for the first time, we're going to be featuring one of the community-made maps from the Total Tavern map pack. Of course, Turin had a map-making competition and collated and, with the help of, obviously, some modders, put together this map pack here. All the maps have been submitted by various community members, and I haven't had a chance to play a lot of them myself, but today we've got this replay from Used. I believe this is from a tournament. It's going to be taking Bretonnia against Foul Horde of Bellicor. So let's take a look at the build here. We've got Rapunzel and Henri, Damsel of Life, and some Trebuchets that already have some XP chevrons to increase their fire rate and accuracy, and then 4 Foot Squires, along with some mobs out in the low ground. 4 Bellicor, some throwing axes, and Marauder Horse Masters, of course. 4 Warriors of Chaos, plus Halberd Infantry. Makes a lot of sense against Bretonnia. I've got some Marauders. Let's go ahead and take a look at the reserve armies real quick. For Bretonnia's reserves, they've got the Regiment of Renown, Knights of the Realm, the Knights of the Lion-Hearted, another Knight of the Realm, 2 Questing Knights, 2 Pegasus Knights, Holy Wardens of La Maisontal, 3 Archers, 1 with Poison Arrows, and 1 Mounted Yeoman. For the Warriors of Chaos reserves, 1 Armored Troll, 2 Chaos Feral Manticores, 4 Hellstriders, 3 Throwing Axe Marauder Cavalry, 1 Poison Warhound, 2 Marauder Infantry, and 1 Warrior with Halberd. And we're back to it. So, this is the Road to Val's Anvil map. You can see here there's 1 objective in this little kind of pavilion here, and then 2 on the slope down into the valley here. Bretonnia going to be deploying up on the high ground, used trying to take a decisive position here, where he can then utilize his trebuchets to broadcast damage over the open ground, while some mobs just sit here and distract. Honestly, those Marauder Horsemen could just charge the mobs to rout them, but they are mostly just a distraction, of course, at this point. Even a charge would arguably be a waste of vigor, but we'll see. Right now, the trebuchets are raining in shots. Looks like we've got, 3 trebuchets here, all with some XP chevrons. The XP chevrons do make quite a bit of a difference, as trebuchets' biggest issue is their accuracy. Tends to be quite poor, and of course, experience increases accuracy. Another thing a lot of people don't realize, not super pertinent to the trebuchets necessarily, but XP chevrons also give you additional vigor resistance, like your unit's vigor, the rate at which it decreases is slowed for units with more XP chevrons. Here we're going to see some Pegasus Knights come out and kind of pressure Bellicor away, with Rapunzel buffing them especially. The Pegasus Knights are going to actually trade very well here, and in general, I really like them as a response to a lot of what Bretonnia is facing these days. In general, just having them against a powerful flying character like Bellicor as a support unit is definitely nice. Definitely don't want them fighting in a clean 1v1 against Bellicor, but even still, like I said, with Rapunzel's support, they'll trade well against Manticores, they'll trade well against Hellstriders. They're one of the few units, because they're actually flying anti-large cavalry, that can like dictate a good engagement against Hellstriders, and potentially use that ultra-fast speed and flying attribute to not eat charges from Hellstriders and be able to get good engagements against them. We'll see. Right now, Bellicor just kind of trundling around here. The peasants honestly could focus fire on him once that Shadow Shroud drops and get some pretty good damage, but instead he's going to try and dive the Bretonnian caster. Super risky move, as the Pegasus Knights are on station. Henri and Rapunzel also close by, able to rush in here and get some attacks. He's going to drop a little Pit of Shades here. I guess it was kind of intentional, maybe to draw a blob, try and get those Pegasus Knights into the Pit of Shades. It does hit some of the unit. It's going to do some damage here, but a quick Earthblood in response from Used should be able to keep them nice and healthy. Meanwhile, Bellicor is having a hard time getting away. His ground speed, as it turns out, is not faster than the Bretonnian character's charge speed on horseback. Very important to realize. There's a lot of different speeds for various units, especially flying units. Like, they have 1 speed in the air, they have another speed on the ground, and of course all units also have charge animations, which have different speed than their base speed. So, like here, Bellicor's just not able to get away. He's going to have to screen out with some infantry, who are advancing into this position, but right now definitely taking some significant fire. Those Marauder Horsemen throwing axes do have a missile block chance, and of course the armor piercing damage makes them decent here, but facing that concentrated infantry bow fire Not going to be a comfortable situation for them by any means, although they are getting some decent damage into those Pegasus Knights. They're going to go ahead and run back out here. We've got some trolls attacking with the Manticore, some infantry as well. Marauders making their way up and around. And Foot Squires trying to trap these Hellstriders. Hellstriders almost get through to the Trebuchet, but very clutch summoning of these Pegasus Knights. This is what I'm talking about. The Pegasus Knights are one of the few units that I really like against Hellstriders. Like this air charge down onto the ground, they just win decisively, and it's actually very cost-effective trade for them as well. If they can like trade out 2 or 3 of those Hellstriders, they'll pay for themselves quite easily. But another Pit of Shades here, going to nuke this Foot Squire. Unfortunately, the Troll's leadership, despite the leadership buffs, without XP Chevron, still not amazing. Without Bellicor or anything else to support their leadership, they're going to rout away as the Pegasus Knights fight this Manticore up in the air. Going to be able to take it down. The Foot Squire is defending, and the Damsel, he says to Bellicor, you know, I see your giant Pit of Shades, and I'm going to counter with what is definitely the strongest Vortex spell in the game right now. Dreaded Dwellers Below. That is going to absolutely eviscerate a couple of units of warriors with halberds. They're going to get shot by poison arrows. The Trebuchet also landing some hits in there, and Foot Squires, of course, with their armor-piercing anti-infantry. It's just a really bad day at the office for those halberd warriors. Meanwhile, I've got some Knights Lion-Hearted here in Lance Formation. Lance Formation is actually pretty good right now. I think, from what I've heard, I haven't actually tested it that much myself to see. Does seem like it actually gives you quite a bit of benefit, but like here, the Pegasus Knights are actually hard landed on the ground alongside these Knights of the Lion-Hearted, and Bellicor decides to land here again, which is risky for sure. Knights of Lion-Hearted with their magic damage will cut through his physical resistance, and he'll feel his lack of armor, especially with Rapunzel juicing their sustained melee stats with her buff. You can see them not currently active on it, but when it is active, I mean, what is it, like +8, something like that? Very strong, will make their stats quite high. Yeah, see there, 49, 46. That is ridiculous for a shock cavalry unit, up to 95 charge bonus as well from that Lance Formation. So just exceptionally strong stats there for that ROR. Magic damage and everything else for Ponce and Henri, not to mention their single entity power, of course. Just fighting, but, oh yeah, here we go. See some more beautiful Knights of the Lion-Hearted charge into these Hellstriders. Hellstriders getting caught flat-footed. Going to be very devastating. That said, Bretonnia's mostly only been defending the high ground objective. Granted, they're getting a huge value lead right now. This Pit of Shades will equalize it somewhat, but they haven't captured any of these low ground objectives yet. That said, Questing Knights coming through, getting in a position to do so. We've got the Holy Wardens of Lemaisenthal also surging forward onto the lowest objective. Meanwhile, Manticore gets back from route. It's going to come chew on some of these Trebuchet, crewmen. The other 2 Trebuchets able to stay safe, and Peasant Arrows, very nice, routing those Marauders before they get into contact there. Trolls staying on the route as well from these Foot Squires and everything else. But things are looking pretty good with Bellicor finished, pretty much, right? Yeah, he's gone. That is a huge amount of value lost, and Bellicor is such a powerhouse, but at the same time, I feel like Bretonnia is one of the factions that actually probably has the best tools to deal with Bellicor. When I stop and think about it, I mean, their magical damage, high weapon strength, you know, anti-large knights are a pretty hard counter for him. Especially considering, like, their shock value. Anywhere he lands on the ground, he's going to probably get countercharged by some knights with anti-large damage, maybe some characters with anti-large damage, magic damage potentially. So I'd actually, you know, thinking about it more in a meta sense, Bretonnia, probably one of the best factions for killing Bellicor. You know, a lot of factions with access to Flaming Sword of Ruin and good cheap missile units can also do a really good job of killing him off with ranged. But here, Bretonnia just straight up countercharging him in melee, which is awesome, I have to say, in terms of their lore and theming and everything, just being able to strike down the scariest of the big demons. I actually would wonder about Kolek in this matchup. Kolek is a lord that still exists, I promise, even though you don't see him anymore. He is probably a little bit overcosted, but his armor, I would think, would be of more benefit than Bellicor's sort of ability set. Bellacor's lack of armor and his physical resistance, you know, being countered by the magic damage are both problems in this matchup. Likewise, you know, Kolek also gives you a little bit of capture weight. Or alternately, you know, you could try bringing like a Nurgle Lord and maybe a Shaggoth separately. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But right now, Bretonnia is pushing forward with their cavalry, starting to get those objective captures. Holy Wardens just straight up trading evenly, if not out-trading those halberds, which is nice to see. Knights of the Realm in the open space here. Mounted Yeomen and Knights of the Lion-Hearted doing a great job counteracting the Slaanesh Cavalry and the Marauder Horsemen and sort of the meta chaos mobility force here. Got more Pegasus Knights rushing into support there as well. Trebuchets managed to get back online. That Manticore getting routed by the archers, and all staying firm and continuing to fire in on those halberds. Let's get in close and get some more of this sweet anti-Hellstrider action. One of the most hated units in Warhammer right now, so I'm sure a lot of you guys will like to see these Bretonnian Knights lancing down the Hellstriders and the Marauder Horsemen both. Knights Lion-Hearted aren't quite able to capture those guys, even with their charge speed, but can come down, try and bail out these Mounted Yeomen who are getting creamed by Hellstriders right now. Manticore lands right in the middle of some Knights of the Realm, which is not going to be great. I mean, unless it can get a quick tear route, the Knights of the Realm will turn around and fight back fairly well. Lance formation, interesting to see that use. Yeah, it looks like all of his Knights pretty much with high charge. So the Knights of the Realm are using Lance formation. Quested Knights are not, which does make sense. They're more of a melee-oriented cavalry, relying less on their charge bonus. That charge buff doesn't do quite as much for them, but they're coming in to fight. All this Bretonnian cavalry, Verpons and Henri now down supporting, going to be able to give them some extra stats. Chaos did capture this high ground objective with some cheeky hounds and Marauders. They're going to keep this objective situation quite close, but army damage value-wise, I mean, Use is almost 4,000 points ahead, and a lot of that is Be'lakor, but still, a lot of that also is just straight-up units getting eaten. Like these Hellstriders, I'd be surprised if they paid for themselves even one time. Yeah, so far not, at least in that case. Marauder Horsemen, likewise, same thing. They've been very well limited between the archers, the mobility of Bretonnia here. Use has done a great job in not letting himself get swamped in that cheap mobility from Chaos. Looks like the House Cat of War here going to throw in the towel. Understandably so. Bretonnia is pretty far ahead, has a good positional control, and the values just kind of well spread around the entire army. The trebuchets actually performed really nicely, and it's surprising to me. I'm not the biggest fan of trebuchets generally, but actually with the chevrons it does make more sense, and especially in this amount of numbers in a longer game like Domination, where you can expect to see waves of infantry coming in. If you can keep them protected, it can be quite effective, as evidenced here. For the rest of the army, the mobility of Bretonnia really carries, and I love to see that. Great value on these Knights of the Realm. Knights Lion-Hearted, Regiment of Renown, also fantastic. Pegasus Knights contributing, so I love everything about this. The new map looks awesome. You know, credit, I didn't check, unfortunately, which specific map maker made this map that we saw today, but it's great. You know, whoever made that, great job. Nice to see those community maps. And love to see this Bretonnian build. Nothing against House Cat of War personally, but just to see Bretonnia prevail with their classic sort of patented playstyle of heavy cavalry winning the day against the Warriors of Chaos, against Be'lakor, and sort of the quote-unquote meta units that a lot of people hate right now. Just everything about this I love, so hopefully you did as well. If you like this sort of content, and you love it even, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.